Hi, it's Tammy Leggett, broker in charge with J Park Carolina Living, coming to you today to talk to you about the North Carolina offer to purchase. You'll also hear this heard as the 2T or the OTC, offer to purchase, OTP, I'm sorry, OTP. Okay, let's get started. Okay, first we're going to talk about the seller's name. Here we want to enter the seller's name. And where do you get that information from? You get that information from the tax records. So you can go to the county website. If you are using the MLS, you can click on the PIN number, and that PIN number will take you to your tax records, which will show you the owners on record. Now, remember, it will not show you all the owners that are on deed. It'll show you the owners on record to pay taxes. You need to check with the seller and or check the deed to see if there are any other parties that are on the deed, which should be listed by the listing agent, if such. But you want to make sure you ask that question. Are there any others that are on the deed that may not be showing as a part of the tax records? Okay, let's go down to the buyer's name. For the buyer's name, you want to put in the correct name of your buyer. Now, I can say I made the mistake once before of having a friend of mine for years. Years we were friends, and I knew him by this particular name, and so did everyone else. Well, when I listed his house for sale, I found out that that was not his name. He said, Tammy, that's not my name. My real name is this. This is my middle name. I thought, okay, did not know that, but what that in turn gave me more work to do. So I'm going to head off some work for you to do by telling you to check with your buyer for your buyer's name and make sure that you have the correct name and the correct spelling of the name. If your buyer is married, you also want to have the buyer's spouse name, if they're on the loan, added to the name for the buyers. You also want to make sure that if your buyers is an LLC, a corporation, a trust, that you are putting the correct name of that entity into the name of the buyer, not the name of the person that you're working with. Later, I'll show you where that person needs to sign. But you want to make sure the company's name is there. If there is a mobile or modular home that is on manufactured home that is on the property, you want to check this box that it will or will not include that manufactured or mobile home, because sometimes people take them away and you want to know whether it is included. If it is included, you want to use form TA11T. Here we're going to enter the name, the address, street name and address, city, county, zip. And then remember, we talk about anything in blue. If it is a box, the real estate commission wants you to know about this information. And that's governmental authorities, authority over taxes, zoning, school zone, utilities, and mail delivery. It may differ from the address shown. So they're letting us know that. This information for the legal description, you can pull that from your tax records. You should see the lot, the block, and the subdivision name as a part of your tax records. You come on down, you also see that PIN, PID number. You want to enter it here. Remember that your contract, your offer to purchase that you're hoping to turn into a contract will end up in an attorney's hand, may end up in a title company hands, may end up in the mortgage company hands. You want to make sure that the information you're putting on here is correct, and try not to leave any blank lines. NA, if there's not applicable answer that goes there, place an NA. We're also going to get that deed book and page number off of the tax records. For the realist, for Canopy, you want to go down to realist at the bottom of the left-hand side. You will see the last time that house was recorded with the name of that seller. You want to look, and it's going to tell you deed book number. You want to take that number and enter it here where it says deed book and page. Here's where we're going to put the full purchase price that we are trying to obtain the house. So if we're trying to obtain a house at $500,000, $500,000 would go here. Let's say that we are given $5,000 due diligence. That $5,000 to due diligence will go here. Now, a question that I'm often asked is, how much due diligence do I give? How much do we give? I can tell you due diligence part usually runs between 1% and 2%, but it will be determined by your market and your buyer's ability to put funds down. So due diligence, that's what you put in for your due diligence. We go down to your earnest money. If your buyer's given $10,000 earnest money, we want to put that here. If they're given any additional earnest money beyond the date of the sending this offer, we want to put that additional earnest money here. If they have a loan by assumption, or if the seller is financing, or let's say they have a builder's deposit, all those numbers will go into these areas. We want to take our sales price, decrease all, deduct or subtract all the numbers that are in between your earnest money, your due diligence money, your additional due diligence money, your seller by seller financing, and you want to put your balance in here. Okay, we're going to come on to page 2. Remember, again, we said anything that is in blue, a blue box, anything in red also, but anything in blue, the real estate commission is trying to tell you something. If the party agrees that the buyer will pay any fees or deposit described above by electronic or wire transfer, the seller agrees to cooperate in effecting with transfer, which means that we may need your seller's routing number, bank account number, in order to get that wire over. Now, should the buyer fail to deliver either the earnest money or in the initial earnest money, the due diligence money, or the additional earnest money by their due dates, or should any check or any other funds paid by the buyer be dishonored for any reason by the institution upon which the payment is drawn, the buyer shall have 1 business day after written notice to deliver cash. So we want to make sure that we're getting our buyers due diligence checks. And if they're sending wires, we need to know that, but getting that information and getting it over to the seller's agent as soon as possible. Okay, down on number F is escrow agent. For the name of the escrow agent, this is the attorney that we will use to close this property. So we want to put the name of our attorney. The space is big enough that you can put the name of your attorney, their address, and the phone number. So when your seller receives the offer to purchase and they accept as a contract, the seller can, and a seller's agent can see the name of the attorney, and not just the name, but the address if they have more than one location, and the phone number to make contact with them. Again, here we are in blue. We're going to talk about dispute of the earnest money that is held in escrow. A licensed real estate broker is required by the state. An escrow agent, if not a broker, hereby agrees to retain the earnest money deposit in the escrow's agent's trust or escrow account until escrow agent has obtained written release from the parties. Now we can do that. We can get written release by completing a termination with return of earnest money. If the seller signs, buyer sign, money can be returned. But if there's ever a disagreement between earnest money, of course, we as realtors, we step back and the money will be held until there is written communication to release the funds to one of the other parties. Okay, we're going to come on down. We'll talk about due diligence period. One of the things that a lot of the agents have an issue with or have questions about is due diligence. Our due diligence. And if you see the period beginning on the effective date and extending through 5 p.m. Remember that 5 p.m. Your due diligence in at 5 p.m. exactly. So let's say that you put your due diligence will be through June the 30th. Well, at June the 30th at 5 p.m., due diligence time is over. You're fully up under contract. So if there's anything that you're requesting, any repairs, any negotiations that need to be done during the due diligence process and well before that 5 p.m. At 5 p.m., it's a no-go. Okay, so you want to enter the specific date of your due diligence. We're going to come down here. We're talking about our settlement date now. Now, our settlement date is your closing date. Now, we're saying the closing date will take place on June 20th. That is the date that I'm going to put in here, June 20th. And now I want to also give you a little side note of talking to your lender. Some lenders can say, hey, is the house vacant? I can get it closed in 17 days, 14 days, 21 days. Talk with your lender when choosing your closing date to see what time frame they need. If it's an FHA, it may take a little longer. USDA or VA may take longer than the regular 30 days of a conventional. So you want to ask your lender so when you put that date onto your offer to purchase, you know that your lender can meet that date. Okay, so we're going to come on down and we're going to talk about fixtures. Let's talk about fixtures and some things that's going on with fixtures. Now, we need to understand what fixtures are. Now let's see that we have a house and the house is fully furnished. House fully furnished. We take that house and we flip it upside down. Everything that does not fall to the floor is considered a fixture. It's bolted in, it's bolted into the ceiling, to the wall, it's screwed in to the ceiling, to the wall. It's considered a fixtures. Most people may not realize that that jacuzzi that's sitting in your backyard, yeah, it's considered a fixture and it stays with the house unless the seller specifically state it does not convey. It actually stays with the house. Well, did you realize that smart devices stay with the house too? We're now in an age where people are using smart devices. So we have Ring cameras that are, watching our homes for us. We have Ring floodlights that are lighting the path and recording at the same time. We have personal devices inside of our homes, and let's get to that too. We have personal devices that are inside of our home. Did you realize these things are considered fixtures? Realtors, if your client has an electrical vehicle, know that the electrical charging unit inside their garage, yeah, that stays with the home. So if they happen to be looking for your seller is looking for a new home and they did not put in the contract that the charging system will not convey, which means it will not stay, guess what? It belongs to the house with your buyer. So you need to walk through the house and let your buyer know which things will stay and that are considered fixtures and what things are actually leaving that the seller will be taking with them. As an agent, please read the MLS. Read the MLS and see what it says. Do it say that the refrigerator will convey? Because there's a lot of times when we go into the homes and we see there a nice shiny new refrigerator, stove, microwave, and assume that those items stay. No, if it's there, we need to ask. The refrigerator is considered personal property. So if your buyer looks at it and they say, oh, there's a matching new set of appliances, make sure that you request the refrigerator when it comes down a little bit farther about personal property. Okay, now, prior to closing, the seller should disconnect from all their smart devices. So we want to make sure that happens. Your new buyer will be coming in. Previous seller needs to disconnect, and that's what we're going over here. We talk about things that are not leased and not owned. Well, there are times when people have propane tanks, and those propane tanks may be for their fireplace, maybe for a swimming pool, maybe for an outdoor grill. That fireplace is, that gas is actually rented. The tank is rented and the rental company is the gas company is bringing in gas every month to refill. Well, that's leased or rented. We want to make sure we put that in here along with like solar panels. If those solar panels are leased and they're not owned, we need to make sure they're included. So that's another reason we want to read the MLS and see exactly what it states, will stay and will not convey. Okay, let's come down here. Items that do not convey. So if the item do not convey, it could be the refrigerator that does not convey. It could be a freezer that's there that does not convey. And so we have a basketball goal, a jacuzzi that does not stay with the home. If it states that, we can put that information in here. Now, remember, we are completing the offer to purchase. If the seller's agent, the listing agent, states in the MLS that an item does not convey, you should put that item into your offer to purchase. If you do not, and the listing agent do not, guess what? That item will stay with the house. The seller should not remove it unless the listing agent has it in the MLS. And then once you send this offer to purchase over to the listing agent should read over it and see if you put anything in there that will convey or will not convey. So once again, here we go. Here's fallen property. Personal property that's present on the property on the date of the offer should be transferred to the buyer at closing. Hey, they have an LG refrigerator. We want it. What about the washer and dryer that was up there? Looked like it was recently purchased. Yet we want that. That's personal property. We like to have that basketball goal. We want to put those items here as personal property that will transfer over to my new buyer. Any personal property that will be a part of the sale should be identified in this paragraph. Buyer is advised to consult the buyer's lender to ensure the personal property items listed above can be included with the contract, because it is up to the buyer, to the lender. Because once you're buying a house, your lender is actually giving a loan based on, let's say you have a $400,000 house. They're giving a loan based on a $400,000 house. But let's say you have received from the seller the John Deere lawnmower and all the lawn equipment and the storage unit that was left in the back of the house. And they left all these things that are considered personal property, the refrigerator, a freezer, some other things. And you list all these things out. Now it looks like that is a part of the collateral for the loan also, because these things were put into the contract, and it just like the home is, and given as collateral. So check with your lender. Some lenders want to see that on your contract. Some lenders do not. Okay, now here we go. We talked about a blue box. Now we see a red box from the Real Estate Commission. Buyer is strongly encouraged to conduct due diligence during the due diligence period. Make sure you're taking your due diligence date and making a note in your calendar and reminding yourself that due diligence is over on June 20th. So, and set that reminder for a minimum of 3 to 5 days prior to, so that you can begin. I have mine set for a minimum of 3, and then again at 2 days, to let me know and remind me that my due diligence period is ending. Do I have all my inspections? Is everything complete? Has all the work that I requested been completed? Did I send over my due diligence request form for those repairs? Because remember, 5 p.m. is when it's over. So we want to make sure that if we're requesting repairs from the seller, that we have that due diligence repair request form over to the seller before 5 p.m. Well before. Don't wait until 4:59 and hit the send button. You want to make sure you get that thing in a day before if you can. If you have that list, make sure you get it in as soon as possible. Okay, here we go. This is another important. It's in blue, but still important. There is no loan or appraisal contingency in this offer to purchase a contract. Did you hear that? There is no loan or appraisal contingency, which means that even if I cannot get a loan, Mr. Buyer, even if you can't get a loan, Mr. Buyer, there's nothing in this contract that protects you. What if the house doesn't appraise? There is no appraisal contingency attached to this offer. So if it doesn't appraise, you put in an offer for $400,000 and hey, it appraised for $390,000, your buyer may have to bring that $10,000 to closing in order to save that deal. There is not a loan or appraisal contingency with the North Carolina residential offer to purchase. Know that information because it is important. Now, can you add an appraisal contingency? Yes, one can be added, but there does not include one on this particular contract. Therefore, the buyer is advised to consult with the buyer's lender prior to signing the offer to ensure that the due diligence period will allow sufficient time for the loan process and for the buyer's lender to provide provide the buyer sufficient information to decide whether to proceed or terminate the transaction. That's very important for you to know when speaking with your buyer about this contract and they're trying to get a loan to buy the house, or they do not have the additional money. Now, there are sellers that will negotiate with you on the appraisals, but not all. Okay, so here's some information we want to make sure we go over and read. We want to talk about the sale or lease of an existing property. Okay, buyer representation. Funds to complete the purchase. My buyer has cash. I'm going to check number 1. Let's see. In blue again, if the buyer does not intend to obtain a new loan and or the funds from sources other than the buyer's own assets, seller is advised prior to signing this offer to obtain documentation from the buyer which demonstrates that the buyer will be able to close on the property without the necessity of obtaining a loan or funds from sources other than the buyer's own assets. Now, what does that mean? That my buyer has cash. My buyer doesn't need to get a loan, and the seller needs to know that. If my buyer needs to get a loan, I need to come down here and check the next box, first mortgage. Here we go. We're going to check this box. Buyer intends to obtain a loan. And then we're going to come down and say, what type of loan? A first mortgage. A first mortgage. What type of first mortgage will it be? Is it an FHA or VA? Is it conventional? USDA? Here's where we're going to check that box stating the type of loan our buyer has been pre-approved for. We're going to check with the lender. If you do not know, check with your lender and they can tell you, well, they have a USDA loan, they have a VA loan, they have a FHA or conventional loan. Okay, and then we're going to put in the principal amount of the loan, not the principal amount of the purchase. So if they have a FHA 3% down program, we're going to take the sales price and multiply it by 97%, taking away that 3%, 97%, and it's going to give us the amount of the principal loan. So that's the amount that's going to go here. Plus finance VA fee if they have VA or FHA MIP if they have mortgage insurance. If they're obtaining two loans, because they may have a first and a second, 80% first, 20% second. If they do, the second mortgage information would go here. And let's say that they're able to get gift funds. My dear old mom, she wants me to buy a house so bad that she's giving me $60,000 toward my down payment. That information goes here. Other funds. Buyer intends to obtain funds from the following sources in order to purchase this property. $60,000 from my mom. $40,000 from my 401k. That's where that information would go. Now, once again, here we are in blue. Buyer's obligation under the contract are not conditioned upon obtaining any loan or other funds from sources other than the buyer's own assets. Some mortgage loan programs and other programs providing funds for the purchase of property selected by the buyer may impose repair obligations. We know which ones that are. And or additional conditions or costs upon the seller or the buyer. The more information will be needed. Material changes with respect to funding the purchase of the property that affect the terms of the contract are material facts that must be disclosed. So I have one that's going on now that I had to change my loan lender on. Only because my buyer was told that he needed additional money down to get the mortgage payment he needs. Well, upon finding that information out, I went ahead, called this seller's agent, updated my documents, and sent over the name of the new lender because that is a material fact. So we need to know what those material facts are. If your buyer was paying cash and now they're getting a loan, that's a material fact. We need to make sure that the seller and seller agents knows this information and sign for it. Okay, other property. Do my buyer have another property to sell that is contingent upon the offer I'm putting on your house, Mr. Seller? We could say yes, the buyer does have to sell or lease other property in order to qualify for a new loan because they may not be able to afford both mortgage payments. So we must say yes. And then we go down and we put in the other property address. We come here and we say, is the buyer's other property under contract? If so, we click here. The buyer's property is not under contract. We clicked here. It's listed with an active license, listed and actively marketed by a licensed real estate broker. Then we would check here. It will be listed. We check here. The buyer is attempting to sell the buyer's property without the assistance of a real estate broker. He is a for sale by owner. We would check this box. Now we come down and once again, here we are in blue. The contract is not conditioned upon the sale or lease or closing of the buyers of the property. So your buyer can't say, well, I'm sorry, my house didn't close, Mr. Seller, so I can't buy your house. If the parties agree to make this contract conditioned on a sale, lease, or closing of the buyers of the property, an appropriate contingency addendum should be drafted by the North Carolina real estate attorney. Now, we can do that. We can just have an attorney draft stating that my buyer must sell his home before he can buy your home. His purchase of your home is contingent upon him selling his own personal property. That will be drawn up by an attorney. Okay, so now we come down here. We're going to go to the Residential Property Owners Association disclosure. Has your buyer received a copy? If not, did you look in the MLS and see under the document section if the documents have been uploaded by the listing agent? Check there first. If they're not there, reach out to your listing agent, let them know that you need a copy of the Residential Property and Owners Association disclosure statement so that you can check this box that says my buyer has received a copy. All right, now we want to come down here and say, well, what is exempt? Because I get that question a lot. What is exempt from the residential property disclosure? Well, I give you a couple different ones. A court-ordered sale, it's a foreclosure. Court-ordered sale, it's heirs, court-ordered sale. That does not have to have, they do not have to have a residential property disclosure. The borrower of the lender's transfer. No property disclosure, fiduciary transfer. And when we're talking about some of these transfer, we're talking about foreclosures. But let's say a spouse to spouse, I transfer my house to my husband. We do not have to have a residential disclosure. Tax sale, government transfer, first sale of dwelling. You have a new construction home. New construction home will not have a residential disclosure. Now, a lease option whereas the occupants or they're going to occupy the dwelling, you do not have to provide a residential property and owner's disclosure. Now we're going to come down to the buyers, to the mineral and oil gas rights. In North Carolina, this is a mandatory form. So as we go, the buyer has received a copy, the buyer has not. That form should also be located in the document section of the MLS. If you do not see it there, please reach out to the listing agent and have them send you a copy. We're going to go over the buyer's obligation up under this offer to purchase. There are seller's obligations up under this offer to purchase. And then if there is an HOA, if there's an HOA, we want to come down here. We want to put in the information that's located on the MLS. If that information is there, we can also look in the document sections. The covenants and restrictions may be uploaded in that area. If they're not, you want to reach out and confirm and get that information from the listing agent, and then reach out to the HOA company yourself, because sometimes there is a difference between the amount that is in the MLS for the annual or monthly dues versus what you find out when you actually reach out to the HOA company yourself, and you want the most accurate information. So that's what goes here. You're going to have the name. You're going to say what the dues are. Now, those is $100. Is it $100 per year or per month? You'll have that information there. And then who's the person that is in control of the HOA? Who's the president? That information goes in this line here. Now we're going to talk about fuel tanks. Remember earlier we talked about leased items. So we're going to talk about fuel tanks. Is there a fuel tank at the home? We would check this box if it is. Yes. Is it currently in use or not in use? Well, it's for a pool, so it's summertime. We're going to say yes, currently in use. Ownership, is it owned or leased? Well, it's leased. Who is it leased by? Bossman, Propane, and Gas. Okay, where is it located? It's located above ground. What type of fuel is in it? I'm going to check propane, the name and contact information of the vendor. So this is where Bossman, Propane, and Gas will go along with their phone number. And if there are two, so maybe they have a tank for their pool and have a different tank for the gas that they're using in their shop, want to ask that too. How's that shop heated? Here's where you will put that tank to information. Now, here we go again in blue. Make sure you're reading your areas in blue. Buyer should be entitled to conduct inspections to confirm the existence, type, and ownership of any fuel tanks located on the property. They have it right. Second one states the state law provides that it is unlawful for any person other than the supplier or the owner of a fuel supply tank to disconnect, interrupt, or supply the fuel, fill the supply tank with liquefied propane gas, petroleum gas. Now, what I want to say about that and what was clicking through my head as I was talking. Also, if your seller has gas on the property and that gas tank will remain in, that new buyer will take over the gas that is currently in that tank. You want to make sure that gas is measured, because that amount will be due to the seller at closing, unless there is an agreement that the seller will not be charging the buyer for any gas left in the tank. So if there is propane tank, make sure you handle that also with addressing the information with the seller and seller's agent of any fuel tanks and fuel that are in tanks. Okay. Now we want to come down here again. There's in blue. We're going to have removal of seller's property. We run into this a lot. The seller shall remove by the date of possession is made available to the buyer. All personal property, which is not a part of the purchase, and all garbage and debris. Now, we as realtors have had sellers close on a buyer's close on a house, and the seller left the house a mess is a good word for it. You want to make sure if you are the listing agent to tell your sellers to remove all, it should be in broom clean condition, move in condition when your buyer comes to the house. So you want to make sure you go over this contract, this offer to purchase with your buyers prior to having them sign. And here we go again, buyer's seller to conduct a survey or exam title of the property prior to the expiration of due diligence does not relieve the seller of their obligation to deliver good title. They still must give good title. And if any sale of the property may be a short sale, consideration should be given to the attaching short sale addendum. So if this is a short sale, make sure you have your short sale addendum included. Okay, we're going to come down here to deed taxes. Who is the deed going to be in? Is this going to be to John Doe and Mary Doe, husband and wife? Is this to John Doe and Mary Joe Doe, brother and sister? We need to say how the names on the deed will go, because your attorney will be looking at that also. Okay, we're going to enter the amount of closing costs that we're asking for the sellers. How much are we asking for? In this instance, I'm asking for $5,000 from the seller towards my buyer's closing costs. Now, seller should review the FHA VA addendum prior to entering amount in paragraph 8I, because certain FHA and VA lenders and inspection costs cannot be paid by the buyer. The buyer settlement and the amount of these should be included in blank above. So we want to make sure that if there are fees for FHA and VA, there are fees that the buyer cannot pay. So when we're asking for that closing costs, make sure that we're including those fees that the buyer can't pay, because those fees will be then shown paid by the seller. Okay, we want to talk about home warranty. Will we be requesting a home warranty from the seller? That's number one. No home warranty is to be provided by the seller. Number two, buyer may obtain a 1-year home warranty at a cost of, and you can put that in there. If you're working with a home warranty company, like that $450, the buyer is willing to pay it. You can say the buyer, well, this particular one, read what it says. The first one is no home warranty will be provided by the seller. The second one is the buyer may obtain a 1-year home warranty at the cost not to exceed $450, which includes sale tax, and the seller agrees to pay for it. They're gonna pay for it at closing, which a lot of sellers do, y'all. The third one, the seller has obtained and will provide a 1-year home warranty from, and they will put the name of the company, the cost of the home warranty in there. And now in blue again, home warranties typically have limitations on and conditions to cover. So we want to make sure that you go over, if you're advising your buyer to get a home warranty, give them the information from the home warranty company that shows them what that home warranty covers. Okay, we're going to go over some prorations, conditions for loss, a delay in settlement. And now we're going to talk about some addendums that can be added. If we check these boxes, make sure that you are adding these addendums, and that these addendums are also going over to your lender, because they can see that you've added addendum onto your offer to purchase, and they will be requesting those. So there's the additional provisions. Usually the most common are the additional provisions, your FHA and VA financing addendum. You want to make sure that if you have a VA, if your client is getting a VA or FHA or USDA loan, that you are also attaching the addenda to go with it. Now, if your house was built before 1978, you're going to have the lead-based paint addendum. It may be new construction, so you have a new construction addendum. So you want to make sure that if you have a short sale, you will attach the short sale addendum. Now, remember, we as North Carolina real estate brokers are not allowed to draft any addendum. Let me repeat that. We as North Carolina real estate brokers are not allowed to complete or draft an addendum to the contract that must be done by an attorney. We see all kinds of things in real estate, and realtors do things, and we want to make sure that you're clear and that you're not getting in any trouble with the real estate commission, which means we do not draft addendums to our contract. Okay, we're going to go over some assignments. This contract may not be assigned without written consent of all parties. So remember that too, because we have a lot of people that assign contracts. It cannot be assigned without written permission from all parties. Okay. We're going to talk about some remedies of breach. And remember, a party seeking recovery from an attorney fees under North Carolina General Statute 6-21-2 must first be given written notice to the other party that they have 5 days from the mailing date of the notice to pay any outstanding amount without the attorney fees. Okay, so as we're going through our offer to purchase and finishing up, you just want to remember some of the rules. Make sure that you are confirming and verifying your buyer's and seller's name, getting the correct information for the deed, book, and page subdivision information off of the GIS or the realist. You want to ensure that you are putting in the correct numbers for your purchase price, minusing out your due diligence and your earnest money to get your balance. Have your correct due diligence day. Take your due diligence day and stick it in your calendar so that you will remember and know when due diligence is coming close so you can take care of any repairs. And then we want to make sure we have that correct closing date. We've talked with our lender, and our lender has said, hey, I can close this within 30 days. Then I'm going to request 35 days on my offer to purchase. So if you have any questions, we're going to go down here before we're done. I told you I would show you where the signature will go if you are dealing with an LLC, a corporation or a partnership, or maybe even, not partnership, or a trust and a partnership. They will sign here where it says entity buyer. If it's a regular buyer, they will sign here. You have 2 buyers. Your buyers will sign here and date. If you're using automatic signatures, you're using a signature authority, you will put that date in and then put in the buyer's name. They will sign. If you're dealing with a corporation, your corporation will sign here below. You'll put the name of the corporation here, which should fill in when you put in the information for your company's name at the beginning. Buy is the person that will be signing. They will sign here, print their name, give their title and date. We then go over the wire fraud again. Hey, here's where we're going to put our information. Here on the left-hand side is the information for the selling firm, which is the buyer's agent. Remember that because I have that question too. It sounds like the selling firm should be the seller's firm, but it's not. The selling firm is the buyer's agent. Put the name of your firm license number, mailing address, whether you are representing the buyer, the seller, and working as a buyer's agent or seller's agent. And then we give our individual information, which are individual selling agent information, your name, your license number, phone number, fax number, and email address. Now, don't forget on the other side, because you are the one that's completing this offer to purchase, take the time to look up your listing agent information. They're not filling out this contract. They're not filling out this offer. So take the time to look up their information. It's in the MLS. So you want to go in and you put in your listing agent firm name, your firm number. Who are they working for? The seller? Are they working as a dual agent? Put in their mailing address. Now we go down. We want to do the same thing we did for us. You want to enter the individual listing agent information along with their license number, phone number, fax number, and email address. Our last page is just our receipt of money. I'm going to say just because that's important. We're going to use this page once we are under contract and we send the due diligence check over to the seller and or seller agent. They will initial and sign. They will check the box and sign stating that they have received the due diligence money as the listing agent and or as the seller. And then the escrow agent will also send you a copy of this stating that they have received your earnest money. And if there's any additional earnest money, it goes here. Well, we have completed the training for the offer to purchase, OTP, 2T. You will hear it called maybe all 3, or sometimes it's just, I have a contract. Here's the form that you would need. If you have any questions, please feel free to get in contact with me.